Come here now, girl.
Hello and welcome to St Catherine's Point, the walkthrough with me, BonBonB. I'm BonBonB, you're very, very welcome. And welcome back to the formerly provisionally named Duveau. Today's episode is going to be about where I came up with the name, the inspiration for the layout, and just the behind-the-scenes thought process of the whole map. I know I've spent 60 episodes putting the map together, but I didn't talk so much about inspiration. I just talked about practicalities and rambled about life in general. This is going to be specifically about the map and not so much about life in general. So, first of all, the elephant in the room, which is the name. And the name, St Catherine's Point, well, first of all, I'm going to apologise now to Sidai, who recently released a map called Mont St Catherine. And I've released a map 2 weeks later called St Catherine's Point. It would appear to be some kind of malicious attempt by me to capture some subscribers from him. That is not the case. Never intended to confuse or befuddle anybody with this decision. Basically, a long story very short. When I started making the map back in April, I wanted to have a good name. A proper name. I couldn't, you don't start with the name, unless of course you're recreating an area. You don't start with, sometimes the name comes later. And that's what happened here. In the meanwhile, as I started building the map, I had a provisional name, which was Duveau. That came about, for those of you who haven't been watching map making, du being French for two, or de, I guess, but du because it rhymes with new, which is as in nouveau, which is French for new. And so therefore my new map, my nouveau map, and it's my second map, is my de map, and then Duveau came to be. It was never going to be the long-term permanent name. It would confuse a lot of people. The spelling would be, even I wasn't decided on the spelling until very, very late in the process. I always had an X in the name, and in the end the final spelling of Duveau ended up without an X in the name. But yes, if I was confused, everybody else would be confused. The name for the map I wanted to feel real. It wasn't going to be a copy of the place of a name, although it's a big world, and if you come out of a place name, there's a chance somewhere in the world it's called that same name. So there is actually a location called St Catherine's Point, not a million miles from where I live. Actually, I could drive there in a couple of hours maybe, and take the ferry, because ironically it's on an island, on the Isle of Wight, the largest island off the mainland of the United Kingdom. But yes, the southernmost point of the Isle of Wight is called St Catherine. I didn't know this. I may have known it at one point, but I certainly not something that, if you'd asked me in a quiz, I wouldn't have had a clue. I now know, and I'll never forget. But St Catherine's Point. Why St Catherine's Point, though? Well, I wanted a name that tied into my day job, which is within the confectionery industry. But I didn't want it to be cheesy. Anything like Lollipop Island would be absolutely ridiculous. So I went with, I let inspiration stir for a while. And then this one particular day, I was handling a case of a roll of licorice. And in the middle of this roll of licorice, I mean, they're small roll. They didn't talk about huge rolls, just a small roll of a bite-sized roll of licorice. And in the middle of this roll up of licorice is a little aniseed flavoured jelly button with hundreds and thousands on it, either usually pink or blue, although they can be other colours. And in the United Kingdom, I don't know about anywhere else in the world, but in the United Kingdom, these things are called Catherine wheels. And I was just looking at this image of the Catherine wheel, and I'm going, Catherine, yes, something about it. Catherine's one of those names that is fairly, I'll say universal, but certainly works in the United Kingdom, certainly works, I know, in Europe, and of course there's been definitely some Catherines in the in the actual Russia, in the former Russia. Yes, sorry, as the sirens go past my window, if you can hear that, I'm sorry. That's the problem with recording live, I can't edit that out. So yes, so Catherine, I thought that will work very nicely indeed. and then Catherine's Island, Catherine this, Catherine that. Eventually, St Catherine's Point came together. And I figured that I would use the wheel, because otherwise there's no relevance to it being candy, in a focal point on the island. I know some people are not sold on the floral tribute at the entrance to the island, but that's the only thing for me that ties it into the original inspiration for the name, and that being the Catherine wheel. Although the wheel on the floral tribute isn't a confectionery style, I deliberately avoided that and went with one that looks like the wheel that she was attempted to be martyred on. Right, so anyway, that's where the name came from. The name actually came together back in the summer, but I wanted to keep it as a surprise. You know, so one of those things, people are seeing me build the map. I don't want to completely ruin the surprise. Plus, on top of that, I knew I was going to be reviewing it, and I didn't want people to know the name in advance, so they wouldn't have the whole, oh, this is definitely BonBon's map, even before you start watching the video. Deliberately did a thumbnail image that was fairly generic and didn't show any of the key points of the map. So yeah, I was very, very secretive about all of that. So the name I kept to myself. And so the months went on as I got closer and closer and closer. And then suddenly, as the map reviewer, I saw right at the top of the charts a map that had virtually the same name as mine. It was going to be released about 2 weeks after, and I knew that I was getting that close, and I just thought, oh bugger. Oh bugger, damned you, said I, damned you. And for a couple of days I seriously considered renaming the map, but I didn't have it. It's one of those that I had the name St Catherine's Point was engraved into me. I didn't really want to. I couldn't. St Joseph's Point and Patrick's Point, but none of these things had the connection with the candy, and so therefore it kind of became a one of those. I've got to check out this new map, because I didn't want there to be a confusion between the two maps. First of all, Mont St Catherine and St Catherine's Point. The Catherine is at the beginning at one and at the end of the other, so there's not too much, not like Manchester United and Manchester City. It's completely different format of the name. Then I went and had a look at the map, and I know Sidai, and Sidai is arguably the best map maker of the moment. There are two or three that would be up there challenging for that title. Sidai is definitely one of those two or three. So a few of you would say he's the best, a few of you might argue for one of the others. But anyway, let's just say, had it been a lesser map maker, had it been a first time map maker, it wouldn't have worried me. It wouldn't have worried me at all. But when you're dealing with somebody who is one of the very best, you kind of feel a bit worried, because it's going to be a good map, isn't it? His Mont St Catherine is going to be a good map. And I knew that this was going to be a good map because of the hours I was putting in and the areas. Yes, I know, not perfect map, but I knew it was going to be a good map. And then I realised that there was going to be a cut based on Mont Saint Michel, and I was a little bit worried, more so even before seeing the map, because I'm thinking, hang on a second, that's a tidal island, and fairly rugged rocks, and I've got a tidal island here with an area with a castle on it with fairly rugged rocks. There are a lot of coincidences. Then I went into the map, and while the map is excellent, it's really excellent, it was a rush build for our good friend, oh crikey, who was it? It was Skibbeth, I believe. Sorry, I'm trying to remember which YouTuber was kind of commissioned the map. I'm sure it was Skibbeth, for a YouTube build, and the map was put together fairly quickly. It's still an excellent map, but it's not polished. And I'm sure Skib is going to be the one that's going to be doing all the polishing on that map. At that point, I was less panicky because it wasn't going to be a question of two highly detailed, beautiful maps. It was going to be a vanilla map, because Sidai's map is if not vanilla, as good as vanilla, and my one is far from. So at that point, I'm thinking, right, okay, there's enough of a difference between these two maps to be able to accept that they are different. There shouldn't be a confusion. There really shouldn't. But that said, damn it, Sidai, how dare you beat me to the name? How dare you? It's not right. But I'm sorry. But yes, I was then kind of like stuck with the name, and I'm not changing it now. Right. So anyway, that's the elephant in the room. The apology to Sidai. I'm sorry for stealing the name. Another siren going past my window. I live right by a very, very busy road, and absolutely every emergency vehicle that has to go from one side of town to the other has to go down this road. And yes, it all gets very noisy. Okay, so right, let's have a look at the map as a whole. First of all, let's talk about the layout. The layout, before the layouts, let's talk about the design. And as you can make out with the sandbanks, this would have been a peninsula, an entire peninsula, all of its own. But then you got to the river estuary coming out here, which would have then eroded a lot of the peninsula away, especially over this side. There were a couple of obviously breakthroughs over this side, but this is like a higher, rockier kind of area. And down here, it's all been the estuary would have like emerged out this way at one point, and so it's been all eroded away, and this is sort of like the last bit standing. And then so we've got those people that know the map will know that at the end of this little strait here, at low tide, we've got a village which emerges. And so for me, that's a little nod to the whole area being at one point above ground by the river mouth, and then in the last 150 years or so, it all being eroded away. And of course, there's whole areas of the world that are going to be going through that in the next couple of 100 years, what with global warming and the melting of the polar ice caps. But this was going to be down to not so much tidal work, but the erosion from the river itself. And yes, so anyway, that's for that. The actual layout of the map, the 25 tiles. This is the bottom left-hand corner for the 25 tiles. Just takes in a pinch of the mainland. I'm showing you this just because, although a lot of you won't be playing vanilla, those of you that want to play with the 25, limit yourself to the 25 tiles. Yes, I'm going to show you what you can get for your money. What get for your free buck here. So there's that. The top corner is just shy of that side island, and then over here you can get to there, and then down here is to there. Right, so what we've got there, those are your 25 tiles. Within the 25 tiles, you've got these two little islands, which basically you can't really do too much with. You can. There is an argument for being able to do something on the middle island. This end island is just a bit too small to be doing much with at all. The main build area, if you're playing 25 tiles, is this. Now, I've seen in the comments a lot of people saying it's a bit too small. Well, yeah, it is an island map. But those 25 tiles, this island's got about 5 tiles of flat build plane. Accepting the wetlands in the middle here, that's about a full tile of unusable area. But if you're working around the outside, from this tail point here, up to the base of the castle, around here is all usable. Then down here, the hills are usable, but you are obviously going to have to be working up the side of the hill, but they're not unbuildable at all by any stretch of the imagination. And then down here to the end, that totals about 5 tiles, which is not bad. It's not bad. It's not a huge city, but it doesn't sell itself to being a huge city island. Then I knew that there would be people that would want more to get up to closer to the 9 tile limit that you'd normally have. So just outside of the 25 tiles over here, I put in a second island. This was a lot of empty space over here, so I figured, why not over here? and basically put this on. And this is about another 3 tiles of build plane, and it's mostly flat land, so that's good. Then on top of that, so that's about 8 tiles in total. Then on top of that, people that really want to go for it, I know it's a bit tight to the edge of the map. It's about, well, if you think that's 2 kilometers deep, isn't it? So about 1 kilometer deep there, about 2 kilometers deep at its widest along here. And then here you've got about 4 kilometers square. That's 4 kilometers square there, and an extra, so you're talking about 5, maybe 6 tiles worth of build plane on the mainland on this side of the river as well. So if you add all that together, that's got to be, that's say 5, 6, and then you've got these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about another 6 there. So there's about 12 tiles along the edge of the bottom of the map of the mainland. Obviously you can't do a huge city build on this part because it's a bit too shallow, but you can do stuff with it. And then over here there's room for a small city leading out to the bridges off to the mainland, off to the main island, sorry. The Essential Lighthouse Island is outside of the 25 tiles. It's too small to be building on. It is an aesthetic item, and it's the very first thing that I built in the map. Okay, let's have a look at the map in a close-up. First of all, the theme mixer. There are a number of different mods that I've used or tried to use to bring out the best of the map. One of them is the theme mixer. Now, if I come down here and stick that to about, actually, shall we find somewhere which has got sand and cliff? Sand and cliff over here. And so something like about there. So we've got some river, so we've got some sea as well. So I'm using the theme mixer. And let me, if I open up the theme mixer now, I'm going to go switch off the theme mixer. Disabled now. So this is what it would look like in Springwood, which is the base map theme. It still looks okay in Springwood. I've got to say, it looks okay. I don't mind it. The sand just didn't really sell itself to me, really. And also, if you look at the way that the grass merges down to the sand, not massively sold on that either. Cliff textures are fine. No problem with the cliff textures at all. But and then the grass is a bit meh. It's all right, but overall, it looks okay. Then if we switch the theme mixer back on, options enabled again, boom, lovely, and there. Now I feel that has a lot more definition in it. Loving the, I would say, I love the sound texture. I know Zosso in the comments mentioned that it doesn't really work for being like tidal mudflats. I get that. I've got to say, originally the idea was that a lot of the sand would have been pushed down from this river, from the river estuary, and the glitchy bridge there. Might have to try rebuilding that. So that's where a lot of the sand was coming from. But I do accept that the sand around the back end of the island here wouldn't be the same gritty sand as we've got over this side. So yes, I kind of buy that. What I did toy with doing, we have got the oil texture down here, and I kind of was close to using that for the undersea areas, but you can see it is a grassy texture, and I really wanted it to be like a muddy texture there. But the way that showing you the way that the grass and the, where are we, back over here, yeah, the grass and the sand merge, it's a lot softer the way it merges. It really does taper out, and the alpha channel has been used really, really nicely there. We can just see here, that's just absolutely lovely. So yes, really happy with the mix of themes as well. So that's the theme. We also use the tides mod as well. I'm going to leave the tides mod until a bit later on in the episode, just because I want to show you around the areas first of all and why. The very last things that I added to the map were regarding the Industries DLC, because the Industries DLC came out really, really late in the map build. When I started making the map, there was no such thing. By the end, there was Industries DLC, and I didn't even have the Industries DLC. Planned to buy it in time to finish off the map and just make sure that everything works fine with that. And then along came Harant and just gifted it to me. Thank you very much again for about the 4th time for that. It saved me putting my hand in my pocket, and I appreciate that. It's very nice of you. And so, anyways, got the Industries DLC. And then I noticed that you needed large chunks of flat area to be able to put the buildings on, because some of them are quite large. Some of them aren't so, but some of them are quite large. So, for example, down here, this oil area down here, right on the sea edge here, it's not perfectly flat, but it's still pretty flat. And yes, you can, as you want to build into an area, you can switch your terrain lines on and then just get your terrain brush out and just level out the areas that you need for that building to sit onto. You're not building on a huge great big hill. It's quite cozy. The thing with switch that back off. The thing with the ore, now the ore over here, these areas are perfectly flat. This was just a little bit of light detailing went on with these. Originally, this was all forest along the edge of the map there. And then when I realised ore, now the only 3 places I could have used, the ore would have looked stupid in the middle of the main island. This island over here was always going to be more farming, and so therefore it would look stupid over here. And over here, well, I guess I could have put ore over here as well, but it's a possible. The main location, though, actually on the main island, we have a couple of ore pits put in right at the very end, and I'll show you the justification for these. First of all, they are flat enough. You've got enough flat land at the bottom there to get. It doesn't look big enough, but trust me, they are. You can get across this little pit here and this pit around the corner here. You can get all of the main buildings and a few more be able to work with the operation. You'd have to put a road round to it, but hey, you're the city builder, not me. So yes, and once again, I'm loving the cliff textures as well, and the way that they all merge in together, and the ore texture at the bottom. It just all looks really, really nice. In terms of actual detailing, all I've done is I've dropped a few of Zardas's rock pack, water-friendly rocks there, and a couple of bushes at the bottom just to make it look like, you know, things are getting a grip in there. That's all I did. Honestly, this and this took me 5 or 10 minutes, and that was it. The reason why, or the second reason why I've gone with that, is because of glitching. While the themes work really nicely together, you can see the hills. Their hills are alive and they're beautiful, right? You can see that you just get with almost any theme. If you pull back far enough, you can see the tiling in the themes. But it looks really bad here. Basically, there was no forest on this. It looked really, really bad, and it looked really bad here. There's a third one around here. There we go. This patch here. It kind of looked like that. And there's not really too much I could do short of putting in more trees on that area. But then I'm up to 200,000 trees already, or carving out another one of these quarries. And I decided that I could survive with just that one. I could just let that one go. You can't have absolute perfection all the time. So anyway, so that's with those 2 quarries. And then I looked at those and I thought, it's really not much. And if somebody wants to go to town on it, why not have quarries? Now, we already had the harbour down here in place, and we've got the rail depot at the end here as well. So you could have like a rail freight area, cargo freight area here as well. You've got the roads coming in, and this is really close. So if you have a big ore mining area there, the option for, once again, it's kind of in the fog. Most people won't even use this one, but it's kind of in the fog. But you can build up an ore mining area here, and you haven't got too far to go to export it. And obviously all the road traffic, if you're going to have a lot of trucks on the go, all the road traffic is going to avoid the main island. that is really nice. Keeps it right away from your city, from your main city or main town. Right, so that was then we've had in terms of fertile land. You can see the slightly brighter green across the middle of the island there. The main routes for the highways are where all the fertile land is. Not expecting anybody really to do much in the way of farming on this map, on this particular island, because there's a limited amount of build space already. If you want to do farming and you've got the extra tiles, you can come out here. Fertile land is on this island as well. Right, okay, now inspirations. I was going to talk about inspirations. Let's start about the whole of the tidal area. Now, I have family that live up in Lancashire, or South Cheshire, all that kind of area. And South Cheshire? No, South Cumbria. South Cheshire. Yes, they live all over the place. Now, so all up in the northwest of England. And there's a little area down there, I say little area, big area down there, called Morecambe Bay, where the tide will come in faster than a man can run. And it's renowned for having quicksand, and it's proper mud flats, unlike this sand that I'm using here, which also quite rightly points out is too grainy to be mud flats. But I still think it looks really, really good. I'm prepared to accept that. It's credit. It's yeah, I credit myself for that. I don't care. I like it. I think it looks pretty. So yes. Now this kind of area, I'm not going to say it was inspired entirely by Morecambe Bay. This was not ever intended to be Mont Saint Michel, ever. Hadn't even crossed my mind that it would be Mont Saint Michel. I mean, this whole island is way too big to be Mont Saint Michel. I mean, we're talking, what was it? How many tiles across was that? It was about 6 square kilometres. Way too big. Yeah, it was more Morecambe Bay than Mont Saint Michel. Morecambe Bay doesn't have this huge river. It does have tributaries running into it, but it doesn't have this huge river running into it like I've got here. So it was more the idea that the fact that the tide would recede a long way out. Because most of the maps that use the tide already, you just see it coming up the beach a little bit and then going down the beach a little bit. And I really wanted to have a little bit more than that. So anyway, so that's where the idea for having the tide going a long way out. Then we have the Sunken Village, this one here. There's no immediate direct inspiration for this, although literally in the news as we speak at the moment, we had a really hot summer in the UK, and a lot of the reservoirs are very low at the moment, waiting for the rains to fully replenish them. And yeah, it doesn't always rain in the UK, just usually. And there's the village of Derwent, which was flooded way back when they created this reservoir, is for the first time in many a year dry enough that you can walk around it. I came up with this before the Derwent news story, but that said, it's not that I have never seen a reservoir village before. This, however, this isn't actually based on any location at all, but we do have where are we? Just like in Norfolk, there's a lot of land being lost to the sea in Norfolk, and houses collapsing off of cliffs and being washed away. Isle of Wight, where St Catherine's Point, the other St Catherine's Point, is also located. We're seeing a lot of erosion there as well. So basically, all the idea for erosion. There's even buildings in my hometown from 150 years ago. That kind of time period, which ended up 2-3 miles out to sea. Well, not quite out. No, it was 2 miles out to sea, I think. Anyway, yeah, infamously stranded out there and finally got washed away by the waves. So that was kind of the inspiration from various locations, not least the fact that I live on the coastal town, and we've had something similar to this, although the pictures are all in black and white of that building that was left way out to sea. It was a pub. It was a pub, a drinking man's pub. This little stretch here, the inspiration kind of from the street in Whitstable in Kent, North Kent coast. where in Whitstable, this off to the left hand side is the River Thames. You can't see London because it's a long way out, but you get the Thames estuary water pushing out, and then the tide from the opposite direction is from the North Sea and the English Channel pushing around from the Atlantic, and so you then get the two lots of water kind of meet here, push shingle out, and at low tide you can walk a long way out along the street. Worth googling that one if you've never seen it before. That's in Whitstable. It's called the street, I guess, because you can walk along it. Looks like a bit like a road, unlike this, which was intended to have once been a road and sort of like been slightly raised, slightly elevated to protect it from the oncoming tides, and then finally succumb to the oncoming tides. So anyway, that's that one. Now let's start off right down this end. I'm going to try and fly over these bits. So yeah, we've got rail connections down here. Highways, I've gone 2 lanes. 3 lanes once again for this. It feels a bit too rural, and I've used the 3rd lane only for lane merging and lane splitting. So as we come up towards this first intersection, I put in the 3 lanes there, so that if we follow the traffic up here, all the traffic's taking the left hand lane, and then at the top here 2 lanes continue straight on, but we've got the right hand lane which is for split off traffic only. And we've got the same down here, where the traffic comes down here, it merges with a lane from the other side, and you've got 3 lanes, which then gets time to settle itself down, find their location, and merges down to 2 again. Similarly over here, 2 lanes coming along here, and then splits off the right hand lane only for right hand turn, and everything else goes straight on. So anyway, that's about it. Trees. In the comments on the map, somebody said there wasn't much diversity with trees. Yes, and kind of deliberately. This is where thought process came in. I knew that this map was going to be very intensive, and I didn't want to discourage vanilla players from playing it. So 90% of the trees in this map are from Fidelmo's Low Try tree set. Therefore, if you didn't subscribe, if you don't subscribe to the detailed trees, have we got any down here? Not so much here. I think there's going to be 1 or 2 in here. Yes, we've got that's one of the stone pine set there, and we've got the leafy trees as well from Fidelmo, which are quite nice. They're not massively hungry on RAM, but I wanted people to be able to go, do you know what? All I want to do is I just want it to look okay. You can subscribe only to the the low try trees, which are these ones, I think. I'm pretty sure they are. Right, so you can subscribe only to those, and the map will still look okay. You'll be losing a few trees. So I've got the linden trees on this map as well, and there's river reeds as well. Well, we'll get to the river reeds in a minute. But yeah, if all you do is you subscribe to the low try trees, the map will still look okay. It'll be losing a lot of its splendour because of the theme mixing and such, but it'll still look okay. It'll still be very playable, and you won't have to burn your PC out to be able to play it. So that is why the diversity of the trees isn't the greatest. I wanted them to be sort of like just enough to catch the eye that there were different trees amongst, and to flesh things out. This intersection here, now people have commented it's not the best. I kind of buy into that. I'm okay with that criticism. Originally my plan was for it to be a simple underpass. So this road here would come along here, and this would be at a lower point and go underneath the road, which would possibly be slightly elevated. The only problem is we are really close to sea level down here, and with the tides mod, it doesn't differentiate between inland or out at sea. If it's below sea level, it will fill with water. So my original plan went out of the window, and so I had to do something a bit different. I again toyed with having just basically a simple intersection where you have this at one side, have the same on the opposite side, I just wanted to do something a little bit different. Completely agree with everything that everybody said about this intersection. It's not the prettiest. It's not based on anything in real life. I just wanted it to, I don't know. I want it. It does a job. It does a job, and I did spend a bit of time on it. So I'm not massively. I'm not bitterly. I'm not disappointed with my work. Okay, but I'm not disappointed with the criticism either. I totally get it. I really do. Okay, so let's move along a little bit further. We're now past all of that. We've got a little wibble in the highway down here, which was always there. That was just to prevent this highway being one long straight road. This is like Europe, Northern Europe. There are very few long straight roads. In fact, the more I think about this, I'm thinking this is Baltic states. This is Latvia or something. That's what I'm getting. Of course, the name St. Catherine's Point spies into that idea as well, the kind of Russian feel. But that's what I'm kind of like. I'm getting the feel for here anyway. So anyway, yes. So this was always going to be a little bit of a squiggle in the highway, just to break up the long straight. And then these trees literally just put in there so that it looks like there was a reason for bending the highway, so you didn't knock through the trees. It was literally just an aesthetic thing, those ones, to make it look less straight and boring. Okay. Then we have this bridge, which glitches in and out. Might have to rebuild this one to try and stop this from glitching. I don't know what causes it. I've seen it in a few maps every now and then. They're not always highly detailed maps. Sometimes they are very simple maps. I don't know. I don't understand what causes it, but at the wrong height and at the wrong level, at the wrong distance, there for some reason that is the wrong. But if we come down, I don't know. It's odd, but you can still get some really good screenshots of it from different angles. It's just yeah, there we go. It's on the other side. I don't know. I don't understand at all. But yeah, we got a river. The river works. The river is flowing out into the bay, into the estuary. Then over here, it's mostly forested over here. We've got a lot of the low tri trees again. I'm going to ignore the highways just for the moment. I want to show you something that I hadn't shown in the creative process. We've got some glitching also with the trees here in the blocks, depending on the angle that you're at. It's really confusing. I don't understand why it would do that, but it does, only in certain areas at certain angles. I put these roads down to make it look like it's a managed forest, and then right at the very last minute, about the very last thing I did with the map, and you may have found it already, over here I've just done a little bit of a logging area, just a little bit, just a little hint to say, hey look, this is managed forests over here. Okay, that's all that is. Highways. We've got highway entrances, 3 of them all come together in this intersection. Now this intersection is Moseltal, that's it, Moseltal, by Gussing Navy. Gussing Navy, one of my favourite creators, just because, well, just look. Not only that, but the names he comes up with, you know, none of this stacked 4-lane blah blah intersection. No, Moseltal, love it. I've no idea why, just great name. Yeah, took a lot of time placing this and then replacing it and then replacing it again. Once again, I had a little bit of a problem down here with this underpass being just below sea level. And just below sea level means that at high tide, it floods. Oh yes, clipping lampposts, they only get marked down if they show through into the highway. Okay, just to let you know, a couple of people have mentioned, I saw a clipping lamppost. You did, but I always let people off unless it clips through into the highway, or if it looks really weird, i.e. it clips in and then clips back out again. You can't really do much about them short of having it too high, and it looks awful if it's too high. So anyway, yes, all good with the Moseltown intersection there. This area here, so it's a good build area. I think you can get a small city on the go on this particular area. Then we head off towards the island. Now, for the longest time, I'd left these causeways completely bare. I was thinking about concreting them. I was toying with lots of different thoughts and processes, and then I had a look at some causeways from around the world, and a lot of them have trees on them. The only thing that I couldn't get to do, if I switch themes now and switch this back to the original non-mixed theme, this is all grass. But because of the way that the alpha channel works with the sand, we're getting sand up on the causeway. It kind of makes some kind of sense, actually, that there would be sand up on the causeway, because at low tide the wind would pick it up a little bit and would dump some up on the causeway. But I would rather if I'd been able to keep that 100% green. Can't do that, not with the theme mixer, not the way I've got it set. Then we've got this stone bridge down here. A few people have mentioned why I hadn't deleted if you look under here, we've got the original bridge pillar there, and then we've got gaps under those bridge pillars, and then we can move a little bit further along, you see the original bridge pillar here. Now, the reason being, if you're not going to subscribe to all the assets, that whole bridge would be hovering, and it's going to look a little bit dumb. At least with those bridge pillars in place, you wouldn't need to rebuild this particular bridge. We'll look at the other two bridges in a moment, but this particular bridge, if you don't subscribe to those stone bridge work that goes underneath, or if it gets demolished because one tidal wave and that would kill it, that would take the whole thing out. It took me long enough to get that in place. Long story short, if you don't subscribe to it, or if it gets demolished, the bridge doesn't hover in the air. Down here, Causeway again. Then St Catherine's Point, the floral tribute. The actual layout of this is that you've got the wheel, the Catherine wheel, the spokes. A lot of people don't know this. If you're in the UK and you happen to know that the middle of a Catherine wheel suite is that the pink or blue aniseed jelly button with the hundreds and thousands on them, they're called spogs. That's the actual brand title name, and it actually comes from spokes. It's a language corruption of spokes at the centre of the Catherine wheel, where St Catherine was wheeled through. Was it St Petersburg or Leningrad or wherever she was pinned with the intention of killing her. I do believe she survived, and there she is. Anyway, that represents the Catherine wheel, and then around the outside, the blue is because this is an island. St Catherine is on the island. And the red is for the blood that she must surely have spilt while doing her thing. These roses along the bottom was just because it looked a bit unfinished otherwise. If we're driving in towards the island, and we come back down to road level. So, hello. There, that's a fault. That should be the same level. I checked that 3 times and it's still not perfect. Don't tell Mr. Miyagi. Okay, so as you're driving in here, that is what you see as you enter the island. The floral tribute, you can just about make out the cross, and then you can carry on. Anyways, that there is, it looks better from a different angle. I had to go with that. I just had to. Sorry if you don't like it, but it's just tough. This island's too small to do much with. It's not intended to be built on, and there we are. If you build on it, good for you. Second bridge here, this has got its pillars taken away. However, this bridge, first of all, won't get destroyed it won't get destroyed by a tidal wave. It will hold its ground in the event of a natural disaster if you're using that mod. That said, if you do not subscribe to it, this will be a hovering bridge. But connecting up this to there is much easier than connecting up, oh, flying past it, connecting up from there to there, and making it look natural. So that's that one. Had its pillars removed through the tunnel, through the middle of the island. This is a good size island. You could do something with this. I'm not sure what, but you could do something with it. And then over here we have the final bridge. Once again, we've removed the bridge pillar, the natural vanilla pillar. The vanilla pillar, I like it. So that has got, I think we have. Was that under there? Maybe I haven't. Is that the vanilla pillar? I think on one side I haven't. Well, did you see that? BonBonB is messed up. And over here we've got a vanilla pillar. I've only on one side of the road. Oopsie, minus a star for detailing. Right, so yes, that was they were supposed to be removed, and therefore, if you don't subscribe to this, once again, fairly easy to build a vanilla bridge across there. Not as good as the middle one though. Then the island is mostly flats. I forgot to mention. Go back to that causeway. The inspiration for this came from when I used to, as a young child, live out in the Outer Hebrides in Scotland. Yes, I did live out there for a couple of years. I did. I haven't got any accent. It was only a little one. But yeah, there was 3 of the islands that were connected. One was the 2 Uists and a little island in the middle where it goes by the name of Benbecula. And one of the Uists was connected to Benbecula by a bridge, but the other one by a causeway that would become flooded at high tide. I'm assuming it's been upgraded since, because that's like 30 years ago. 40 years ago. Oops. Hello, shush now. So yeah, I'm assuming it's been upgraded, but I figured I wanted to put in a causeway as a little bit of a nod, although this, you can't have one that floods at high tide, because that basically would kill your game. Having traffic only coming in and out at one tide, you'd be literally drowning your citizens, because they don't know better, do they? They don't. Onto the main island. I think we'll do that island first before we do the main island. This island, options on this island are basically, you've got your fertile land, you've got your lake, which could be something for park life, I guess. You've got lots of beaches, lots and lots of beaches. This beach along here, because you've got a shipping route that runs along the top there, this is deep water. You can get docks right up against there, and ships are not going to ground. So anywhere along this straight stretch here is for your docks. If you want to have a dock over here, you've got a slightly raised area here, and a slightly bigger, still not huge, but definitely in real terms. I mean, if you come down to ground level, you look at that hill at ground level. That is a proper hill. Okay, it's not a mountain. Don't want it to be a mountain. And of course, liberally populated with lots and lots of trees there. On the other side, we have the henge. And one of the last things I did with this was I actually changed the grass. The grass I was using for this was the dry mountain grass or something like that. And when I switched over to this grass texture, I mean, you look at the grass texture, it looks like people have been walking around on it. For me, this has just come out so beautifully well. The gravel, the colour of the gravel, the colour of the trees, the colour of the beach, the water, the sand, and these grass patches have just worked really well. I mean, these grass patches work so well. I mean, just look at that. I am just so happy with this. So happy with this. I'm definitely going to play with the theme mixer again in the future. I did align up this henge to work with the sunrise, but I haven't actually set up the longitude and latitude. But I could do that right now. I'm going to show you so how easy that would be. Right, ambient, and then the longitude should be 0 or thereabouts. Not that it makes any difference at all really there. Latitude, the longitude is about 15. So get that to about 15. There we go. and come back out of here. And then if you, I should leave it on actually, because we moved the time of day to sunrise is at 5 a.m. Now you watch this, guys. So 3 a.m. dark, 5 a.m. bit too, we've gone a bit too far. We'll drop that down a little bit more. There you go, completely in line with the henge is your, oh, move it on just a little, actually, see if we can move on just a fraction, or maybe if I can budge this up a little bit like that. There it is. Sun has now come up over the horizon, and I think this for screenshots is just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Look at that. The theme as well gives us this. The night view, or while we're here, the night view, I've gone with, what am I doing here? Night view. Let's go find ourselves a moon. And onto there. Where's the moon? There it is. Look at that. Huge moon in the sky. Absolutely beautiful again. Great. Okay, back out of this. And I think the settings that I've gone with at night, okay, we've got the lights there, but at night let's go on the island. Look how dark it actually is at night, with no street lights, virtually pitch black. And that's what I wanted. I really wanted it to feel real, and that's what we've got going on here, I think. Right, so anyway, let's come back out of here. Let's put it back into some sort of daytime mode so we can see what we're doing. Early afternoon. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to do. Okay, so yes, we've got big beaches. We've got the hedgerows. I'm really happy with the hedgerows. They came out quite nicely. They look like with anything in the game, the closer you get, the less it gets. Like here. Don't look so much like hedgerows now, do they? But you pull back, that, for me, that works fine. It looks way better than just the prop line tool and one tree. And so that's that island. And then, we come over to the essential lighthouse island, which, there she is. There's a lot of sand on it. It is a sandy island with lots of rocks going on. We've got the jetty, and then I left the impression of a footpath going up the middle of the island to the essential lighthouse on the opposite side. They put a lot of trees on here that they've been out-powered by the rocks. So yeah, if you move some of these rocks around, you'll find trees just suddenly miraculously appear. Because there's a tree under the rock. I couldn't get quite as much foliage on this island as I really would have liked. Got this little separate secondary beach area here as well for putting your little boat up on here. But then, yeah, once you get to the top, you've got across here. There are some trees down this little patch as well, but once again, the rocks just too much for them. And then down here, we've got the essential lighthouse tucked away in amongst the rocks. I'm really quite happy with that location. Makes a lot of sense to me. Right, and then the main island. We've already seen the quarries, the hills. Let's have a look at the hills. Again, I was saying these hills, you can build up into them. They are not the sort of hills that are going to stop you from actually building. They're quite encouraging. You can get them right up in here. Bear in mind, of course, you don't want to get too close to the quarry edges. Where's our quarry edge? There we go. Because you don't want your children falling off of the edge of the quarry. But yeah, get some security fences across the top here, and then you've got a lot of room up here for like small town or villages, or maybe an observatory. That's what I'm planning to do. Stick an observatory up here. Okay, so that is that. Then we have the wetlands. Let's do the wetlands. The wetlands, spent a lot of time on the wetlands. There's a lot of foliage in the wetlands. And I was talking about when you don't subscribe to all the trees, why there's not a mixture of trees. So we've got a lot of low tri trees. And then we've got a lot of these bushes. And we've got, a lot of the river reeds. But we've also got a few other bits of foliage as well. We've got a lot of these vanilla plant type things. I can't remember what they're called. Sorry about that. That came with Park Life. and they cover a lot of the area. So even if you lose all these mixed bushes and all the river reeds like we've got up here, even if you lose all of those, it still looks okay. It just doesn't look, it loses some of its charm. It's highly detailed here, and if you're running any computer, you'll see the frame rate drop it'll drop. You can't maintain that, not with this amount of detail. But I think it's well worth it for the screenshots. Well worth it. So yes, problem that I had for a while was making this river, let's say the wetland delta, come in at the right level to the high stroke low tide, because obviously remember this tide is going to go up and down 8 meters, and it was finding the exact balance for it not to end up looking like it's coming out of a waterfall. That was a bit of a trick. I got there in the end though. And then we'll before we go and have a look at the tides, we have the castle. The castle, this is a little nod to Mont Saint Michel, I guess. A large rocky area. Don't expect anybody to do any building up here. This is something again for park life. You want to do some zoning, some like walks and whatever. So yeah, come in here. This building up here, I expect 90% of people to demolish straight off. I put it up there just as a focal area. Some people have marked me down on it being not realistic for the type, but if you think of what that would look like without a castle and just using vanilla assets, I just wanted it. I wanted it to be a standout area, and so I popped that one in there. I've got a fourth bridge, which is over here, the lifting bridge. Did toy with just not bothering, but I wanted to, once again, little things like this makes the map stand out from other maps. So I popped in the lifting bridge. I have redesigned, after the last episode of map making, there were a few areas that weren't quite working. And the harbour here, where I had it was like an E shape, where we've now got, if you see that's a C, it was more like a capital E, where you had a central strut coming out as well. It was just all a bit too narrow, and you couldn't build anything on it, you couldn't work with it, and the terrain was glitching because it was too narrow. And the same also over here with these harbour walls here, that was also too narrow. So after the final episode of map making, I've just widened those up a little bit, and at the same time I put in all the oil as well, and all the oil under the tidal flats here. Right, speaking of tides, shall we do it? That's what you came here for, isn't it? This is what you came here for, especially this village. That's what you came here for. So what we'll do is we'll go and open up the tides mod options. Tides, there it is down there. Now, the settings I recommend when you're playing the game, have the tide range at 8 meters. Oh, hang on, before we do that, I've got to show you the rock. The rock. Very important rock. Most important part of the whole map if you're using mods. So you've got your start squares about here, and you have access to this little beach down here, just at the bottom of the cliffs. And if you look over here on the beach, you'll see a rock. It's unusual because if you look around the entire map, you will not find another one like that. It is the only rock like that on the whole map. It is there to mark the high tide point for when you're setting up the tides mod. Once you set up tides mod, or before you launch the tides mod, just make sure that your tide is about there. Okay, it doesn't have to be exact. You won't be able to get it exact because the water moves about. But if you are looking at something very similar to this, if your tide is down here, you'll want to use the water tool in more beautification just to budge it up a little bit. If it's up here, you'll want to budge it down. You want it in this kind of zone. It doesn't actually have to be lapping into the water, but it's got to be just about touching it, or just about persistently in it, like where it is now. Anyway, once you've done that, we're going to go back over to the village. Hello, village. Right. Then we call up the tides mod again. Right, before we enable it, the range you want is 8 meters. Anything more than that might cause you some problems with flooding of the underpasses on the highways and stuff. The speed, this is too fast. 3.5 is too fast. What you want to do is you want to have this set right down to the lowest setting, 0.1. I have played it with 0.2. 0.2 is fine as well. The difference is 0.1 will give you a full tide cycle of about every 35 minutes. So if you play the game for, say, an hour, you'll get 2 high tides in that hour. And then obviously 2 low tides in an hour as well. If you move it up to about 0.2, that's about a tide cycle every, I think it was 17 minutes if I remember rightly. So you'll get 4 high tides in an hour, which is still okay. Once you push up to 0.3, I can't remember the exact quantity, but if you think it's halved there, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was halved again, but 17, it might be every 10 minutes. You'll get 6 high tides in an hour. For me, that's a bit too fast. Literally, the tide comes in 5 minutes, then goes out for 5 minutes. If you think about what you can actually build in 5 minutes, it's nothing. 1 minute the tide is there, and the next minute the tide is gone, and then the next minute it's back again. So for me, it has to be on the lowest setting, or arguably, well, the lowest setting is the best. If you want to actually see something happening, have it set to 0.2, because you can actually, you know, see the perceivable change in the tide as you're watching, but it's a slow process. Or you can budget right up to 5, which is ridiculous. I promise you, it's ridiculous. I'm going to show you, and I'm going to enable the tides now, right? And out of here, right? And now this is at high tide, and there we go. We are, in fact, we're on speed setting 1, so this isn't even the fast setting, and already we are halfway to low tide, which for me, it's just too fast. It's ridiculously fast. I guess it's useful if you want to be building at low tide and reclaiming some land at low tide, but this is just too fast for my liking. If we go back into the settings and move that back down to as a 0.2, there you go, because at 0.2 you can actually see it coming in. There we go. Now it took a few moments to stop at the 5 setting, but now if we come down here and just settle down here, and you'll be able to just about watch that water creeping in at a perceivable rate, but it's still playable. Right, so yeah, let's move that thing back down to options, tides, move it up to high speed again, just so that we can catch it at low tide. So if you could please move along, tides, and once it gets to low tide, I'll show you around the map. You've seen the map at high tide. Let's show you the map at low tide. Okay, so we are now, there we go, and just wait for this to, as soon as it starts changing, to come back again, and we'll be about done. Out she goes, out she goes, out she goes. There, it's starting to come back in. Right, so I've paused the game completely, options, and move that back down to 0.1. Excellent, and then we can start the game up again. Right, so at low tide, you've got the full access to the undersea village, but you've got all this area here which has been opened up now. So if you wanted to reclaim and play vanilla rules reclaiming, then you can actually do that during low tide only. Remember though, if you're reclaiming land, the way that the tides map work, the tides mod works, so pull this up. If I pick this now, and we'll pick that height, and what size brush? About that size brush, maybe. Bit larger, come on, a bit larger. That would do it. So right, so we're going to reclaim this land, okay? And then in the middle of this, we're going to build our building, right? So because now we've got dikes, correct? we've got dikes. That should hold the water back. Except for it won't. And this will all fill up with water, even though the tide can't actually get to it. Shall we speed this thing back up again? Options, speed, back up to high speed again, I guess. Bosh, bosh, and back out of there. So when the tide comes back in now, that will fill up. So if you're reclaiming, you will need to reclaim all of the land you want to work on, and nothing you can do about it. You just have to reclaim to completely above high tide mark. Otherwise, yeah, your industry is going to get a little bit soggy. And lovely. Right, so options, speed back down to slow, and then if I go back into this undo, there we go. Put everything back as it was. The water will find its own level in a moment. So that's about it. That is the thought process behind this map, this tides map. Hopefully you will enjoy playing on it as much as I've enjoyed making it. There will be another map coming out of me at some point, but not until, well, I'll be surprised if I even think about doing anything before the spring, because there's just so much going on in my life and with the channel at the moment. So anyway, thanks very much for watching, for commenting, for liking, and for subscribing, for following this this series right the way through. I'll be doing a time-lapse video at some point showing you the entire build process, reduced down from was it 30 hours, 30 odd hours even, to about 10 or 15 minutes. So watch out for that one coming along soon. And thanks for sticking around with me today. I've been BonBonB. You have been very, very welcome, and thanks for sticking by.